I'm Dwayne Chestnut, and I'm running for State University Regent in District 12. I would really appreciate your support, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to come tell my story. This district has not had a contest since 2002, so I'm running strong and hope to get your endorsement.
Dwayne, I'm Chris Steele. So no contest since 2002. So have you been, so you're pretty much the incumbent then, right?
I'm running against an appointed incumbent. The incumbent is a woman named Andrea Anderson from Boulder City. She was appointed to fill Stavros Anthony's term when he was elected to City Council last year. So there's 2 years left on Stavros' term, which is what I'm running to fill.
Okay, so from your perspective, and you've got a little bit of tenure, what's the biggest problem we face based on what you do in the arena that you operate in, and why are you the best qualified to fix it?
Okay, I think the biggest problem is to try to set priorities for the limited budget we're faced with for at least the next 2 to 4 or 5 years. It's not a short-term problem. I have degrees in both engineering and science. I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering, PhD in physical chemistry from Rice University. I've taught as a part-time adjunct professor at a couple of different universities. I have a long career in basic and applied research. I've worked for large corporations. I've had my own business. I know what it's like to meet a payroll. And I think I can bring some analytical skills to looking at the complex problems we have to face. We have 75,000 students in Clark County in some part of the higher education system. And they're right now under a lot of problem because of things like transferability credits between the college system and the university. I think we need to look very carefully at what institution is strongest and each of the different fields that are offered. We need to strengthen the things that are strong. We need to emphasize the things that produce immediate jobs because we have some openings in that. Then we need to look at what we have to do for long-term sustainable economic development. And I believe I can bring a lot to the table to analyze the problems that we have to face.
Dr. Richard Hawkins, economics professor and attorney. Given the reality that cuts will be happening, as you just mentioned, I'm certain you'll do your best to avoid the need for the cuts, but when the cuts have to be made, can you give us some guidance as to what criteria you'll use in not killing the patient while you're at it?
Well, again, I think I see basically 3 major ways to look at the problem. One is, as I mentioned, we have certain programs such as hotel management, nursing, things of that sort, that fill immediate job needs. Those need to be maintained. We also have, I think, to improve our offerings in science and engineering, because those are the things that lead to economic development. And the third thing, I think we got to maintain a strong program in so-called liberal arts or humanities or whatever you would like. Otherwise, we risk turning out people who are trained technicians who are not educated. And I believe we really need educated people. You can't just turn people loose with technical skills on the society without some understanding of how they fit together.
Bill Lyons. My college experiences were not the best growing up, mainly because I wasn't prepared in high school. What can the universities do to help help the lower schools, 12th grade and like, prep for college?
And that's somewhat beyond what the regents do, but I think this is a very important question. I was fortunate enough to have a good high school education in public school in Midland, Texas. Not everybody gets such a nice send-off. I think most of us can look back, probably count on the fingers of 2 hands the really good teachers we've had. How we got there, I don't know. I mean, it's somewhat a matter of luck. One of the things that I think the community colleges could help with a lot would be to handle some of this transition between high school and the university. If we had a better remedial programs possibly that could be done. Something like when I went to a small school in Texas, Rice University, and it had a very selective undergraduate school because it charged no tuition. So there was 2,000 or 3,000 people applying for 500 places in the freshman class. With all of that, they made it clear that it was highly advisable to take a refresher math class before the term started, between the time you graduated and the time the fall term started. And I still remember that vividly. It was 2 solid weeks of 8-hour class a day in an unair-conditioned classroom in Houston, Texas in August. But it gave me the clue that I'm not going to be coddled with algebra and trigonometry and all these things. I've got to know that from day one because I'm going to start with calculus. That's just one example. Another thing that hit me was I had the good luck to have a couple of pretty good English teachers in high school. And I thought I could write. My first exam that I turned in, not an exam, my essay, I made a C. And I got an English teacher that said, okay, every word needs to mean something. You've got to learn how to express yourself clearly. And so over the course of a year, I finally got to where I could make an A in his class. I look back on that as one of the advantages. And how you handle this transition from high school to college is, I don't know if there's a general answer. I think it takes mentoring, it takes teachers that care enough to try to give students some extra help. It may need a tutoring program. Maybe some volunteers could help with that sort of thing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
How much money would the university save if they didn't have the remedial classes?
It's a very good question. I have to look more carefully at what the cost per credit hour actually is for the community college system, College of Southern Nevada, versus what it is in the university. Off the top of my head, I would guess that it costs less because the College of Southern Nevada basically is a teaching institution, not a research institution. And my own background, I find these two things very difficult to combine effectively in one individual. You're constantly struggling between working for your students, making sure they get the proper instruction, and doing what you need to do to maintain your position in the university. So those are some things that again, I think when I'm every now and then asked to advise young people what to do, I usually say, well, look, first you've got to figure out what you really love and go for that. The second thing you need to do is how to get where you need with the least amount of money you're going to have to spend. That generally would go to a 2-year college for your first 2 years. I know some people who started out in a junior college in Texas, transferred into Rice as juniors, and did very well. It cost much less money to spend that first 2 years in a junior college or community college or whatever. So I think that might lead to some ways of reducing some of those costs, but I don't know the numbers at this point.